Ready. And action. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. Time for part two of Professor Victor Singing Eagle's brilliant lectures on Native American literature here at Sisseton, Wahpeton College in beautiful downtown Agency Village, South Dakota. For Thursday, March 27th, 2025. Again, this is Native American literature and your host, the man himself, Professor Victor Singing Eagle. Yay! Right on. Okay, now as I told you last time, I'm supposed to be teaching two classes at the same time, which is why I'm dressed in my safety clothes and I keep looking out the window to make sure my students don't crash my truck. Right, okay, now we were looking at literary criticism. So I'm going to pull this up. Come on. Of course, it's not going to work because these computers never work when you want them to, only when they want to. So I'm going to use the mouse. Pull that up. And we were talking about how literary criticism is like different colored glasses or filters on an old 35 millimeter camera, and each one is a different color, and each color highlights a different aspect. In this case, in reading and art and literature and poetry, we're looking at the same thing oftentimes, but in a different way. In this case, we did classicism and formalism, and we also did feminism. We did a feminist critique of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So I'm going to pull it back up just for fun. Where are you, Harry Potter? Shrink that down. Go away. Nope, not going to let me. Oh, I know. I'm right-clicking on it like a bonehead. Let's try it again. Left click. Nope, not going to let me. Fine, we'll just do this one. Nope. We'll shrink it down this way then. Forget you. Forget you. All righty then. Now, let's mess with, this is where it starts to get fun, you see. We did the boring formalism and the boring classicism, and it started to get interesting when we started talking about feminism, did it not? Now, let's do a Marxist criticism. Yes, even the commies got their 2 cents in when it comes to literary criticism. This is how it works. And again, I'm reading some AI and I'm mixing it up with my own brilliant knowledge. As I put up my glasses upside down. How are they doing out there? Still not crashing. Is he squishing the cone? No, he didn't squish a cone. Good. Now, Marxism views the world, especially Harry Potter's world. It's going to highlight the class structures in this wizarding world, is it not? Particularly the disparities between pure-blood wizards, half-bloods, muggle-borns. Remember the Malfoys? They're from a highfalutin bourgeoisie family, you see. They represent the aristocracy and the inherited privilege. They contrast sharply with the Weasleys, who are from the proletariat class, are they not? From the working class. They're always worried about money. Despite their pure-blood status, they struggle financially. Hogwarts itself mirrors real-world class divisions, with students like Draco Malfoy benefiting from generational wealth, while others like Ron Weasley face economic hardships. How about truth from a Marxist perspective? Looking at Harry Potter, truth is dictated by those who are in power, mainly the Ministry of Magic. And traditional pure blood families, that's kind of what the whole thing is about. You see this Voldemort character wants, and all those other, never mind, I'm going to start stumbling. The way magical society conceals or distorts history to maintain the status quo, e.g., the suppression of house elves and their mistreatment. The marginalization of Muggle-borns reflects on how truth can serve the ruling class interests. Can it not? Same with history. Marxist critic is going to examine how history is written by the winners. The reverence for Dumbledore and other prominent figures suggests a selective historical narrative that downplays systemic oppression. Additionally, figures like Voldemort rise by exploiting class anxieties, promising power to disenfranchise purebloods who fear losing the status, to Muggleborns. Oh man, that sounds like some of our politicians. Never mind, I'm not going to say that. Bad teacher, bad! Stop that! Never mind. Style. A Marxist analyst would focus on how the novel's style reflects capitalist and hierarchical structures. Again, the same with hierarchies in general. We've got all those, the Marxists are really going to focus a lot on that hierarchy and class struggle thing, because that's their thing. They're really going to pull that out of the book. Well, what about the hero's journey? It often reinforces meritocratic ideals. Harry, despite coming from humble beginnings, is chosen rather than rising through personal labor alone. This suggests a problematic reliance on destiny and inherited power rather than a collective struggle. Art, from a Marxist perspective. While Harry Potter is a literary work, it does critique and uphold capitalist ideals. While it exposes class struggles and critiques elitism through characters like the Malfoys, it ultimately reinforces the notion that individual heroism rather than collective action is key to change. The resolution of conflicts through singular figures rather than systemic reform mirrors capitalist narratives of exceptionalism over communal progress. Harry is the chosen one. It's Harry that does in Voldemort, as opposed to all of them working together. That's kind of the book's main focus, is it not? All right, now, the last one that I'm going to bother you with. This is where it comes cool for us natives, you see. How would a post-colonialist look at Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone? Well, as you know, a lot of times we natives write from post-colonial perspectives, right? What does that mean? Post-colonialists are anti-colonialists. We're looking at how is it that these Washichu have moved in here and imposed their culture on us and suppressed the natives. That is post-colonialism in a nutshell. And we're going to take off our Marxist glasses and put on our post-colonial glasses with different color lenses. It's maybe a little bit similar, but now we're not looking at class struggle and economics and labor so much as we are how people oppress other people. Let me read. The World, a post-colonial reading would explore the wizarding world's implicit hierarchies again and colonial influences, the treatment of muggles and magical creatures, such as house elves and goblins, and even the centaurs and all the animals, the magical creatures that live in the enchanted forbidden forest. That reflects colonial attitudes of superiority and subjugation. The wizarding world views itself as inherently superior, echoing the justifications used in colonial enterprises. How about truth? From a post-colonial perspective, truth is shaped by dominant magical institutions like the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts, which impose their worldviews on others. The marginalization of house elves and the exclusion of goblins from wand use can reinforce this enforced narrative that maintains wizard supremacy. Much like colonial powers dictating civilized norms to indigenous populations. See, you can feel it warming up now, can't you? History. A post-colonial critic would examine how wizarding history erases or distorts marginalized perspectives. The glorification of figures like Godric Gryffindor, while largely ignoring the non-wizard contributions, mirrors colonial historiography, where the achievement of dominant groups are celebrated while others are marginalized or ignored. Same thing with hierarchies as well. Culture. The novel reflects cultural imperialism and how magical knowledge is structured, again with the hierarchies. The assumption that wizards possess superior knowledge and that muggles' practices are primitive aligns with colonial attitudes. Ooh, that's so important, I better read it again. What was I saying? I lost it now. Well, the assumption that wizards possess superior knowledge and that muggle practices are primitive aligns with colonial attitudes. Wow. The suppression of alternative magical traditions outside of the European wizarding framework is another point of critique, is it not? Yes, it is. How about style? Postcolonial analysts, when we're looking at Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, we're going to see how Rowling's depiction of the magical world is rooted in British cultural literary traditions, reinforcing a Eurocentric perspective. It's not written about natives in Africa or natives on some island. It's Britain. Is it not? Yes, it is. Now, the use of British boarding school tropes and the portrayal of non-European magical cultures as exotic or lesser developed reinforce implicit biases. By the way, I'm going to stop again and step out of this dialogue or this script here and talk about the boarding school perspective for a minute. Because as you know, Britain, rich people send their kids to boarding school, whereas historically for us natives, boarding school was a nightmare. It was a form of colonial oppression, was it not? Yes, it was. But we don't go there right now because we've got to keep reading. Art. From a post-colonial standpoint, Harry Potter can be seen as both perpetuating and questioning colonial narratives. While it largely upholds a Eurocentric vision of magic, it also introduces moments of critique such as mistreatment of house elves, though these are often left unresolved. The text invites discussion on how deeply colonial legacies are ingrained in fantasy literature and whether they can be fully challenged within its framework. Whoa, we made it all the way through the whole thing. So I'm going to stop it right there. The last segment of our discussion has to do with an Indian story. So I'm going to stop it here. We'll pick it up in part 3. Thanks so much. Talk later. Bye-bye. Oh, you got everything.